I don't know what to say except I am so relieved. In less than 2 days of deliberations, the jury down here in Brunswick, Georgia, which is not the most liberal part of the state of Georgia, the jury found these murderous white men guilty of murder. Each man had, I think, 9 or 10 charges against him. The father and son duo were convicted of almost every charge. There's a difference here in Georgia between felony murder and malice murder. The punk who pulled the trigger, Junior, he received a guilty verdict of felony murder. His father, malice murder. The guy who took the video was found not guilty of malice murder, but he was in the first count, but he was found guilty of malice murder in several counts subsequent to the initial count. The bottom line is all 3 of these white devils were found guilty by a jury of their peers. 12 white people and 1 black person. Was that it? Or 11 white people and 1 black person. Now, there's been all sorts of conversation today about, oh, wow, the jury system worked. The jury system did work in this case. But with a situation like this, how could it have not? But then that's been a problem ever since Reconstruction in this country. How can black people get a fair trial? This trial was certainly fair, but the evidence was so overwhelming. And as far as the jury system working, yes, it certainly did. And I think the 11 or 12 white people on the jury should be commended for what? For following the law, for listening, by not having racist bullshit stuffed into their ears, and rendering a verdict that reflected the evidence that was presented. Very simple, which is the way it should be. Certainly was not the way it was in the Rittenhouse trial, in so many trials where the murderers of black people have gotten away with it. As far as an overarching statement about the jury system or our system of justice in this country, no, don't go there. Don't believe that this one trial where justice was served means anything other than this one trial. There's so many miles to go, so much to try to work through in order to get this system or this country on a system of equal justice under law. We're not there. We're still a million miles from it. But in this one case, the 3 perpetrators, the 3 killers, these 3 white men who escaped for 3 months. And I'll share with you how this finally was indicted, these scum. But these 3 white men, one of whom is a former investigator, a former cop in Brunswick, Georgia, in Glenn County. Brunswick, Georgia is near the Georgia-Florida line, near Jacksonville, Florida. If there's a more racist part of Georgia, it would have to be in North Georgia, where the Q-bitch, Marjorie Taylor Greene, was elected. But South Georgia is notorious for its racism. This case once went 74 days without arrests. And it was seen as a test of racial bias in the justice system. So a little after 1:30 this afternoon here in Georgia, after less than 2 days of deliberations, the verdict was returned, 20 verdicts against these bastards, 25 verdicts, I guess. Members of Ahmaud Arbery's family cried out in joy. Travis McMichael, the father of Greg McMichael, and their neighbor, William Roddy Bryan, were all convicted of felony murder in the shooting of Arbery, meaning they committed felonies that caused his death. They were also found guilty of aggravated assault, false imprisonment, attempt to falsely imprison. But the guy who did the video, old Roddy, and the old man were acquitted of malice murder, which involves intent to kill. But each defendant now faces a potential penalty of life in prison without parole. Nice Christmas gift, huh, you swine? Look what you delivered to the Arbery family. Now, it's not over. All three men still face federal hate crime charges. Ahmaud Arbery's aunt, Ruby Arbery, said she felt, quote, something lift off her, end quote, as the judge read the verdicts. If you go to Washington Post website, you can watch the judge read the verdicts, all of them against these three white killers. Ms. Arbery said, quote, all the pain, all the hurt, it lifted because I knew we got justice. We finally got justice for my nephew, end quote. After the verdict was announced, according to video reports, and by the way, video reports, CNN and MSNBC gave this complete coverage. The Fox propaganda Nazi sewer, they were talking about with the Karen bitch who was hosting the program, and three guests were talking about the oil reserves that Biden has decided to release, at least part of them, in order to try to bring down the price of gasoline. That's what the Fox propaganda sewer was talking about. But back to reality. When the verdict was announced, dozens of Brunswick residents, according to reports here, rushed to the courthouse to celebrate. And so many of the people who showed up were black fathers who brought their sons. One man, 48-year-old Sean Golden, brought his 10-year-old son, and he was quoted as saying, quote, we feel like justice was served, and it was a relief to know the system actually worked in this case, and they didn't find a loophole. He added, bringing him face to face to what is going on around us, his son. This is special and something he will remember for the rest of his life, end quote. What a sad commentary. I know it should be seen as a hopeful commentary, but what a sad commentary that you have to bring your 10-year-old black son to celebrate the conviction of three white killers because it is so rare. A leaked video of this murder, which occurred February 23rd, 2020, by the way. But a leaked video, do you understand me? Put the case into the national spotlight. And it was just weeks before the murder of George Floyd by this murderous white cop in Minneapolis. That murder ignited the mass protests against police brutality and racism in this country. Black Lives Matter, which the scum, the filth in the white community, especially on the filthy, rotten Nazi propaganda station, the Fox sewer, would have you believe that the people that were protesting police brutality and racism are communists? Arbery's killing became a rallying point for the Black Lives Matter movement. And protesters, and my daughter and I were among them, said Arbery was racially profiled while he was jogging. And the authorities in Brunswick, Georgia, in Glynn County, were accused of brushing his death aside, which is exactly what they did. The trial stretched more than 5 weeks. And if you remember, the defense attorneys tried to have black civil rights leaders, pastors, removed from the courtroom because the white defense attorneys made the incredibly fucked up case that the white jury would be intimidated by the presence of black pastors. And that was a perfectly acceptable thing, except it wasn't to the judge, a perfectly acceptable thing for these white defense attorneys, these scum, to say. And the lead defense attorney was an absolute racist son of a bitch. And the Karen, the blonde idiot who talked about Ahmaud Arbery's dirty toenails, Oh my God. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.